My parents canceled my wedding to pay for my sister's third divorce, so I eloped and didn't tell them. The call came while I was picking up my dress for final alterations. Mom's voice had that familiar edge, the one that meant Tessa had screwed up again, and somehow it was my problem. Sweetheart, we need to talk about the wedding budget. I stood in the bridal shop holding my dream dress while the seamstress pinned the hem. 3 weeks until my wedding. 200 guests confirmed. Venue paid for. Flowers ordered. What about it? I asked, though I already knew. Tessa's lawyer needs another $60,000. Her ex-husband's fighting for the vacation house, and if she loses it, she'll have nowhere to live with the kids. Tessa, 28 years old, third marriage imploding spectacularly, each divorce more expensive than the last. Every time, Mom and Dad acted like bankrolling her disasters was some sacred duty. So you're postponing my wedding? Just temporarily. Maybe next spring. You understand Tessa's in crisis mode. I understood perfectly. Tessa's chaos always came first. When I graduated summa cum laude, they missed my ceremony for her second wedding. When I made senior analyst, they couldn't celebrate because Tessa was busy having husband number 2 arrested for domestic violence that turned out to be completely fabricated. The deposits are non-refundable, Mom. We'll lose everything. We'll figure it out later. Family comes first. After I hung up, I stared at myself in the three-way mirror. My fiancé Camden appeared behind me, reading my face. They canceled it, didn't they? I nodded, fighting tears. What if we didn't need their permission? He said quietly. The next morning, we drove to the courthouse. Camden wore his navy suit. I wore a simple ivory dress from my closet, the one I'd bought for our engagement party. The ceremony lasted 12 minutes and cost $42. We spent our honeymoon weekend at his parents' lake house. His family threw us an impromptu reception with grocery store cake and string lights. It was more beautiful than anything my parents would ever have planned. For 3 months, we said nothing. Mom called weekly with Tessa updates the custody battle, her new boyfriend Vincent, her plans to move back into their basement. I listened and made supportive noises. Then the call I'd been dreading finally came. Wonderful news, Mom chirped. Tessa's divorce is finalized. She got the house in primary custody. We can start planning your wedding again? I'm thinking June would be perfect. That's great news about Tessa, I said calmly. Also, Camden and I got married 14 weeks ago. Dead silence. You what? Courthouse ceremony. Very lovely. His parents were witnesses. You got married without your family? Her voice turned shrill. You canceled my wedding to pay Tessa's legal bills. I found an alternative. How could you do this to us? We're your parents. And I'm your daughter. But apparently funding Tessa's disasters matters more than my happiness. That's when I heard Dad grab the phone in the background. What he said next made me realize I'd badly underestimated how far they'd go to keep control. Fine. Dad's voice was ice cold. Since you want to make adult decisions without consulting your family, you can handle your student loans alone too. Hope your new husband can afford the $400,000 you still owe. My stomach dropped. They'd been paying my graduate school loans for 2 years, something they'd offered when I started my MBA. I'd never asked for the help, but they'd insisted. Focus on your studies, Mom had said. We'll handle the financial stress. So you're cutting me off financially because I got married? You cut us off emotionally first, Mom chimed in. Actions have consequences. You canceled my wedding. We postponed it, Dad corrected, for a family emergency. Instead of showing maturity and patience, you threw a tantrum. A tantrum. $400,000 in educational debt was my punishment for having a tantrum. Camden appeared beside me, watching my face go pale. I put the call on speaker. This is about control, I said into the phone. You've used money to manipulate me my entire adult life. We've supported you. Mom's voice cracked with fake hurt. Paid for your car, your apartment down payment, your education. And this is how you repay us? By getting married? By excluding us from the most important day of your life? Camden stepped closer to the phone. With respect, Mrs. Morrison, you excluded yourselves when you chose to fund another family member's legal problems instead of honoring your commitment to your daughter's wedding. The silence stretched a full minute. Then Dad's voice came back, colder than before. Who is this boy, thinking he can lecture us about family commitments? This is your son-in-law, Camden replied evenly, and I'm the person who watched your daughter cry herself to sleep for 3 nights after you canceled her wedding. Well, son-in-law, Dad spat the words like poison. I hope you're prepared to support her completely, because as of today, she's not getting another cent from us. Not for loans, not for emergencies, not for anything. You wanted to marry her so badly? She's your problem now. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like someone had yanked the financial rug out from under my entire future. Camden wrapped his arms around me. We'll figure this out, he whispered. But I was already doing the math. $400,000 in student loans at 6.8% interest. My salary could barely cover the minimum payments. We'd plan to buy a house next year. Have kids eventually. All of it just evaporated. 3 days later, a registered letter arrived. I opened it with shaking hands while Camden read over my shoulder. It was from my parents' attorney, a detailed document explaining that all financial support would cease immediately. Furthermore, I was being removed as beneficiary from their life insurance policies, their will, and my grandfather's trust fund, which I was supposed to inherit at 30. The trust fund I'd almost forgotten about. Grandpa Morrison had left money for each grandchild's future, $200,000 apiece at age 30. Tessa had already burned through hers on her first divorce. I was 26. 4 years from that money. Now it was gone. But the letter wasn't finished. There was a second page that made my blood run cold. In light of recent events and our daughter's demonstrated poor judgment, we have also contacted her employer to express concerns about her emotional stability and decision-making capabilities. As parents, we feel obligated to ensure her professional colleagues are aware of her current mental state. They'd called my boss. I grabbed my phone and called my manager, Rhonda, trying to keep my voice steady. Hey, it's me. Did my parents call you? Rhonda's side told me everything. They did. Yesterday morning. They're worried about you. What exactly did they say? That you'd been acting erratically, making impulsive decisions. They mentioned you'd gotten married suddenly, and they were concerned about your judgment affecting your work performance. My career. They were trying to torch it. Rhonda, I got married 3 months ago. I haven't told anyone because it's personal, but there's nothing erratic about it. My parents are upset because they canceled my original wedding and I found another way. Another pause. Look, I've worked with you for 4 years. You're one of our most reliable analysts. But your parents sounded genuinely worried. They suggested you might benefit from some time off to sort through personal issues. time off, unpaid leave, which would make paying those loans even more impossible. I'm not taking time off, I'm fine. This is retaliation because I got married without their permission. Okay, but if you ever need support or counseling resources, HR has programs available. After hanging up, I sat on our couch staring at the letter. Camden found me there an hour later. They called my work, I said numbly. They're trying to get me fired. He read the letter, jaw tightening line by line. This is harassment, he said finally. It's my family. No, family doesn't destroy your life because you made a choice they didn't like. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept circling back to the pattern how they'd controlled every major decision of my adult life with money. College. They'd pay tuition, but only for business programs, not the art degree I'd wanted. Apartment location. They'd help with the down payment, but only in neighborhoods they approved. Career path. They'd funded my MBA, but expected me to work somewhere they respected. I'd thought their support came from love. Now I saw it was about control, and the moment I stepped outside that control, they scorched the earth. Over breakfast, Camden made a suggestion that changed everything. What if we sued them? I nearly choked on my coffee. Sue my own parents? Think about it. They committed to paying for your wedding, then backed out, you lost deposits because of their broken promise. Now they're retaliating by sabotaging your employment and financial stability. That's gotta be illegal somehow. Camden, they're my parents. They're people actively trying to ruin your life. I wanted to argue but couldn't find the words, because he wasn't wrong. That afternoon I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a lawyer. Janet Fitzgerald specialized in family law and elder abuse, and she listened to my story with growing interest. This is definitely actionable, she said after reviewing the documents. Your parents made verbal and written commitments about your wedding expenses. When they broke those commitments, you suffered real financial losses. Their retaliation through employment interference could constitute harassment or intentional infliction of emotional distress. I don't want to destroy them. I just want them to stop. Sometimes legal action is the only language people like this understand. She quoted her fees. Expensive, but not impossible. Camden and I talked it over that night. This will make everything worse, I said. They'll never forgive me. What exactly are you hoping to be forgiven for? Good question. For getting married? For not letting them control my life? For refusing to be their backup plan after Tessa? The next morning I called Janet back, filed the suit. My parents' reaction was swift and nuclear. Mom called within hours of being served. How dare you, she screamed. You're suing your own parents? Have you completely lost your mind? I'm protecting myself from retaliation. Retaliation? We're trying to teach you about consequences. By sabotaging my career? By showing you what life looks like without family support. This isn't support, Mom. This is punishment. That evening, Tessa showed up at my apartment. I hadn't seen her in months, and she looked terrible, thin, pale, dark circles under her eyes. Can I come in? I stepped aside, noting how she avoided my eyes. Mom told me about the lawsuit, she said, settling onto the couch. Of course she did. She's devastated. Dad's furious. They can't believe you're doing this. I studied my sister's face. Tess, did you know they called my boss? She shifted uncomfortably. They're worried about you. They tried to get me fired. Maybe you're overreacting. They canceled my wedding to pay your legal bills, then cut off my financial support when I got married anyway. How is that overreacting? Tessa flinched. I didn't ask them to pay for my divorce. You accepted their money. Of course I did. I had nowhere else to turn. And there it was the difference between us. When Tessa hit rock bottom, she ran home to Mommy and Daddy. When I needed help, I found my own solutions. Did they send you here to talk me out of the lawsuit? She nodded, reluctant. What did they promise you if you convinced me? Nothing. This isn't about money. But her voice wavered, and I knew she was lying. Tess, what did they promise you? She stared at her hands. Help with Vincent's legal troubles. My jaw dropped. Vincent? Your rebound boyfriend? What kind of legal troubles? DUI, hit and run. His license is suspended and he might go to jail. Jesus Christ. And they're funding this too? He's a good guy who made a mistake. He left the scene of an accident. What if someone was hurt? No one was seriously injured. Seriously injured? So someone was hurt? Tessa's face crumpled. An elderly woman broke her hip, but Vincent panicked. He's not used to drinking and, get out. What? Get out of my apartment. Right now. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're defending a drunk driver who put an old woman in the hospital, and our parents are funding his defense while punishing me for getting married. It's not the same thing. You're right. Vincent committed actual crimes. I committed the crime of not asking permission to live my own life. After Tessa left, I called Janet. We need to expand the lawsuit, I told her. What happened? I explained Vincent, the hit and run, my parents funding his defense while cutting me off. This shows a clear pattern, Janet said. They're selectively supporting family members based on compliance, not actual need or merit. It strengthens our case considerably. How so? It proves the withdrawal of support was never about money. It was about punishment and control. That's key to proving harassment. The lawsuit moved slowly, but everything else moved fast. Mom started calling my friends, my coworkers, even Camden's family, spreading her version of events. I was mentally unstable, had always been jealous of Tessa, and was now attacking my loving parents with frivolous legal action. Some people believed her. My college roommate stopped returning my calls. A few coworkers started treating me differently, but others saw through it, especially once Vincent's hit and run made the local news. When reporters mentioned he was being defended by a high-powered attorney bankrolled by family members, the story started clicking into place for people who knew our family dynamics. Camden's parents were furious on my behalf. His mother, Patricia, had raised 4 children without ever using money as a weapon. This is financial abuse, she told me over dinner one night. I've seen it before, parents who can't let go, who use resources to hold on to control even after their kids are adults. But they did help me, I said. The student loans, the apartment, with strings attached. Real help doesn't come with conditions and punishment threats. She was right. I started tallying up all the times their help had come with fine print. The apartment they'd helped buy had to be in a specific neighborhood. The car they'd co-signed for had to be a practical sedan, not the convertible I'd actually wanted. Even my MBA, they'd only pay for business school, not the master's in nonprofit management I'd originally wanted. Every dollar had been a leash. 6 weeks into the lawsuit, something unexpected happened. Vincent's case went to trial, and the details that emerged were worse than anyone imagined. He hadn't just fled the scene he'd been texting while driving, hit the elderly woman in a crosswalk, then drove home, sobered up, and and waited 6 hours before calling police to report his car stolen. The woman, Eleanor Kessler, had suffered not just a broken hip but a traumatic brain injury. She was 73 and would likely never live independently again. Vincent was sentenced to 4 years in prison. And somehow, this became my fault too. Mom called the night after sentencing, sobbing. "Are you happy now?" she demanded. "Vincent's going to prison because you refused to drop that lawsuit." "How is Vincent's sentencing related to my lawsuit?" "The publicity. The reporter started digging into our family because of your legal action. If you hadn't filed suit, none of this would have come out." "Mom, Vincent committed felony hit and run. That was going to come out regardless. He was going to take a plea deal. The lawyer said he'd get probation and community service. But then the media attention made the prosecutor grandstand. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you're upset that a drunk driver who put a woman in the hospital actually has to face consequences? I'm upset that my daughter destroyed her own family for revenge. Vincent destroyed Mrs. Kessler's life. He deserves prison. And Tessa deserves to lose the man she loves because you couldn't forgive us for postponing your wedding?" That's when it clicked. In Mom's mind, postponing my wedding was a minor inconvenience. Vincent's prison sentence was a major tragedy. The scale was completely backwards. "Mom, are you listening to yourself? You're more upset about Vincent going to jail than about the woman he nearly killed. Don't be dramatic. She's fine. She has brain damage. She's old anyway. She probably only had a few good years left." I hung up. Then I called Camden at work and told him to come home immediately. When he arrived, I was packing. "We're leaving," I said. "What happened?" I told him about the call, about Mom's reaction to Vincent's sentencing, about how she dismissed Mrs. Kessler's injuries. "These are not good people," I said finally. "I've been making excuses for them because they're my parents, but they're not good people." Camden helped me pack in silence. We loaded everything into a U-Haul that night. "Where are we going?" he asked. I'd already been thinking about it. "Your cousin in Denver offered you that job last year. Is it still open?" He made a call. It was. 2 weeks later, we were living in a small apartment in Colorado, 1,500 miles from my parents and their dysfunction. I found work as a financial analyst for a nonprofit that helped low-income families manage debt, ironic, considering my own situation. The student loan payments were brutal. We ate ramen most nights and hadn't bought new clothes in months, but I was free. The lawsuit continued long distance. Janet kept me updated by email. My parents had hired expensive attorneys and were fighting every claim aggressively, even filing countersuits accusing me of defamation and emotional distress. The legal bills piled up for everyone. 8 months after we'd moved to Denver, I got an unexpected call. "Is this Eleanor Morrison Chen?" The voice was elderly, slightly shaky. "It is. This is Eleanor Kessler." I nearly dropped the phone. The woman Vincent had hit. "Mrs. Kessler, how did you— I've been following your lawsuit. My granddaughter is a paralegal, and she's been helping me understand the legal aspects of Vincent's case. When she saw your name connected to his family, she did some research. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. Thank you, dear. But I'm not calling for sympathy. I'm calling because I want to help. Help with what? Your lawsuit. From what I understand, your parents funded Vincent's defense after he nearly killed me, but cut you off financially for getting married without their permission. Is that correct?" Yes, that's essentially correct. "Well, I think that's obscene, and I'd like to testify on your behalf if it would help your case." I was speechless. This woman, catastrophically injured by my sister's boyfriend, wanted to help me sue my parents. "Mrs. Kessler, you don't owe me anything." "No, but I owe society something. Your parents' actions tell a story about their values, and I think a judge should hear that story." I conferenced in Janet, who was thrilled. "This is exactly what we needed," she said after we hung up with Mrs. Kessler. "She's a compelling witness who can speak to the moral dimension of your parents' financial choices. Will it help the case?" "Enormously. She humanizes the consequences of their priorities. They chose to support someone who nearly killed her while punishing you for getting married. The contrast couldn't be starker." The trial was scheduled for the following spring. As it approached, my parents' behavior grew increasingly erratic. They hired a private investigator to follow Camden and me, hunting for evidence of a lavish lifestyle that would contradict claims of financial hardship. They found nothing. Because there was nothing to find, we were barely scraping by. They contacted Denver nonprofits to warn them about my history of mental instability and litigation. Most organizations ignored them, but a few expressed concerns. My reputation was under systematic attack. The breaking point came when they showed up at my new workplace unannounced. I was in a meeting with clients when a colleague knocked on the conference room door. "Eleanor, your parents are in the lobby. They say it's an emergency." My heart stopped. Had something happened to Tessa? Despite everything, she was still my sister. I excused myself and found them in the reception area, looking wildly out of place in their expensive clothes among our nonprofit's modest furniture. "What's the emergency?" I asked immediately. "You are," Dad said. "This has gone far enough. What are you doing here?" "We flew out to talk sense into you," Mom said, "before this trial destroys everyone. How did you find my workplace?" "We hired professionals," Dad said proudly, as if stalking me were some kind of achievement. "You hired private investigators to follow me?" "We hired people to check on our mentally unstable daughter." My coworkers were staring. Clients in the waiting area looked uncomfortable. My boss appeared from her office, clearly concerned. "Is everything all right, Eleanor?" "These are my parents," I said. "They're leaving." "We're not leaving until you agree to drop this ridiculous lawsuit," Mom announced loudly. My boss, Rita, a woman who'd spent 20 years working with families in crisis, stepped forward. "I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voices or take this conversation elsewhere." Dad turned to her with the full weight of his condescension. "This is a private family matter. We're trying to help our daughter before she makes the biggest mistake of her life. By ambushing her at work?" Rita's tone was steel wrapped in silk. "By making her face reality," Mom snapped. "She's been living in Fantasyland, thinking she can just cut off her family with no consequences." "What consequences?" Rita asked, though I could tell she genuinely wanted the answer. "Financial independence," Dad said triumphantly, as if that proved his point. "She wants to be independent? Fine, let her see what that really means." Rita looked at him for a long moment. "So you're punishing your daughter for getting married?" "We're teaching her about responsibility. By hiring investigators to follow her? By showing up at her workplace uninvited? By making her personal business public?" My parents exchanged glances, clearly not expecting pushback from a stranger. "This doesn't concern you," Mom said dismissively. "It concerns me when people disrupt my workplace and upset my employees." I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We're not leaving without our daughter, Dad said firmly. Your daughter is a grown woman with her own job and her own life. She can leave whenever she wants. But you're leaving now. Rita stepped toward her desk and picked up the phone. Security? I need assistance in the main lobby. That's when Mom lost it completely. You can't throw us out. We're her parents. We know what's best for her. She's making terrible decisions and ruining everyone's lives. What terrible decisions? Rita asked. Getting married? Having a job? Living independently? Suing her own family? Destroying relationships? She's been manipulated by that husband of hers into thinking we're the enemy. Rita looked at me. Eleanor, do you want your parents here? No, I said quietly. I want them to leave. You heard her. Security arrived, two polite but firm guards who'd clearly handled this before. They escorted my parents toward the exit while Mom kept shouting, "This isn't over, we're not giving up on you. You're still our daughter, no matter how much you hate us." After they were gone, Rita pulled me into her office. Are you okay? I was shaking. I'm so sorry. They've never done anything like this before. Don't apologize. What they just did was harassment. And frankly, it makes me want to testify in your lawsuit myself. You don't even know the details. I know enough. I've worked with hundreds of families over the years. What I just witnessed was emotional abuse and manipulation. Your parents came here specifically to humiliate you and damage your professional reputation. She was right. They hadn't come to reconcile or apologize. They'd come to make a scene at my workplace, probably hoping I'd get fired. The trial starts next week, I said. Good. I hope you destroy them. That evening, Camden and I sat in our tiny apartment talking through what had happened. They flew to Denver just to ambush you at work, he said. Do you see how far they'll go? I did see it finally, completely. They'll never stop, I realized. Even if I dropped the lawsuit tomorrow, they'd find new ways to punish me until I came crawling back on their terms. So what do? We finish this. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in April. Janet had prepared me well, but seeing my parents in the courtroom still felt surreal. They sat at the defendant's table with their team of lawyers, looking dignified and wronged. Mrs. Kessler was our first witness. She walked slowly to the stand with a cane, still suffering effects from her brain injury. Her testimony was devastating. The defendants funded the legal defense of the man who nearly killed me, she said clearly, not because he was innocent, but because he was dating their daughter. Meanwhile, they cut off financial support to their other daughter for the crime of getting married without permission. This tells me everything I need to know about their character and priorities. My parents' lawyer tried to paint her as a bitter old woman seeking revenge, but it backfired badly. Mrs. Kessler was articulate, sympathetic, and unshakable. Young man, she told their attorney, I don't need revenge. Vincent Marsh is in prison where he belongs. I'm here because I believe parents who enable criminals while punishing law-abiding children need to face consequences. My testimony lasted 2 days. I walked through the history of financial control, the canceled wedding, the retaliation, the harassment. Janet had me read from the letter my parents' attorney had sent, detailing how my emotional instability would affect my professional life. Have you ever exhibited emotional instability at work? Janet asked. No. I've received excellent performance reviews throughout my career. So what was the purpose of this letter? To punish me for getting married without their permission, by damaging my reputation and career prospects. Camden testified about the night I got the call canceling our wedding, about my state afterward, about our decision to elope. Was this an impulsive decision driven by emotional instability? Janet asked him. No, it was a practical solution to a broken promise. We'd been planning the courthouse ceremony as a backup option since our engagement, in case something went wrong with the big wedding. Why? Camden looked directly at my parents. Because Eleanor's family has a history of unreliability when it comes to major commitments. Their lawyers tried to discredit our witnesses and paint me as a vindictive daughter chasing money I didn't deserve. But the evidence was overwhelming. Every financial threat was documented. Every incident of harassment was recorded. The pattern was undeniable. During my father's testimony, Janet took him apart. Mr. Morrison, you funded Vincent Marsh's legal defense after he fled the scene of an accident that put an elderly woman in the hospital. Is that correct? We supported our daughter during a difficult time, but you withdrew financial support from Eleanor when she got married. Is that correct? We reassessed our priorities. So your priority was supporting a drunk driver over your law-abiding daughter? That's not. Did Vincent Marsh commit felony hit and run? He made a mistake. Yes or no, Mr. Morrison? Did Vincent Marsh commit felony hit and run? Yes, but... And you paid for his legal defense? Yes. While simultaneously cutting off Eleanor's student loan support because she got married? Those are unrelated decisions. Are they? Because your letter to Eleanor specifically states that financial support was withdrawn due to her demonstrated poor judgment in getting married. Did you consider Vincent's judgment when you funded his defense? Dad couldn't answer that without admitting his double standard. Mom's testimony was worse. She broke down crying multiple times, painting herself as a devastated mother whose daughter had turned against the family. But under cross-examination, she admitted to calling my workplace to warn them about my mental state, to contacting Denver organizations to damage my reputation, and to hiring investigators to follow me. Mrs. Morrison. Janet said, you've testified that you love your daughter and want what's best for her. Is hiring people to stalk her an expression of love? We were worried about her. Is trying to get her fired an expression of love? She needs to understand consequences. What consequences should Eleanor face for getting married? Mom couldn't answer that one either. The trial lasted 5 days. During closing arguments, Janet laid out the case with surgical precision. This case is about control masquerading as love. The defendants used financial support as a weapon to maintain power over their adult daughter's life choices. When she refused to submit to that control by getting married without permission, they retaliated withdrawing support, sabotaging her career, launching a harassment campaign designed to force her back under their authority. They want you to believe this is about family values and financial responsibility, but their own actions reveal their true priorities. They eagerly funded the legal defense of a drunk driver who nearly killed an innocent woman, but punished their own daughter for the crime of getting married. They hired investigators to stalk their own child. They called her workplace to damage her reputation. They flew across the country to ambush her at her job. Eleanor Morrison Chen committed no crime. She made no mistake. She simply chose to live her own life as an independent adult. For that, her parents declared war on her future. They deserved to face consequences for that choice. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found in my favor on every count. Financial damages for the wedding costs, the lost trust fund inheritance, and career harm, $847,000. Punitive damages for harassment and emotional distress, $1.2 million. Total award, just over $2 million. My parents' faces were stone as the verdict was read. They'd gambled everything on teaching me a lesson about crossing them, and they'd lost spectacularly. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked if I felt vindicated. I feel free, I said. The money was life-changing, but not in the way most people would expect. Camden and I didn't buy a mansion or luxury cars. We paid off our student loans, bought a modest house, and started a scholarship fund for students from dysfunctional families who needed education funding without strings attached. Mrs. Kessler became our first scholarship recipient's honorary grandmother. At 83, she'd enrolled in community college classes for fun and was pulling better grades than students 60 years younger. My parents appealed the verdict, of course. Their appeals failed. They tried to declare bankruptcy to avoid paying, but the court found they'd hidden assets specifically to dodge the judgment. Dad ended up serving 6 months in jail for contempt. Tessa called me once during the appeals process. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "Mom's on antidepressants and Dad's seeing a therapist." "You destroyed them." "They destroyed themselves," I replied. "I just refuse to go down with them. They're still your parents." No, parents don't stalk their children. Parents don't try to ruin their children's careers. Parents don't fund criminals while punishing their law-abiding kids. They stopped being my parents the moment they chose control over love. That was the last time we spoke. 5 years later, I got a call from a lawyer I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Chen, I'm calling about your father's estate." My heart skipped. "Is he dead?" "Yes. I'm sorry. He passed last week from a heart attack. I'm handling the probate." I felt nothing. No grief, no relief, just emptiness. "Am I in the will?" "You are. He left you a letter." The letter arrived 3 days later. Dad's handwriting, familiar from childhood homework help and birthday cards. "Eleanor." It began, "If you're reading this, I'm dead and you've probably won. You got what you wanted. You broke our family apart and made us pay for it. I hope the money was worth losing your parents and sister forever. But I want you to know something. Everything we did because we loved you. We wanted to protect you from making mistakes that would hurt your future. We wanted to guide you towards success and happiness. You saw control where we saw care. Your mother never recovered from losing you. She died inside when that verdict came down. I died inside watching her fade away. We lost everything because you couldn't forgive us for postponing your wedding. I know you'll never forgive us for the lawsuit or what came after. But maybe someday you'll understand that parents make mistakes trying to do what's best for their children. Maybe when you have kids of your own, you'll see that love and control sometimes look the same from the outside. The house is yours now. Your mother wants to keep living there, but the deed is in your name. I suppose you'll kick her out like you kicked us out of your life. Just remember, revenge has a price too. I love you. I always loved you. Even when I was too proud to admit I was wrong. It was signed, Your Father Who Failed You. I sat in my Denver living room holding the letter, trying to process this final manipulation. Even in death, he was trying to make me the villain. The house was mine, but Mom still lived there, and apparently I was expected to either let her stay, proving I'd forgiven them, or evict her, proving I was heartless. Camden read the letter over my shoulder. "What do you want to do about the house?" I thought about it for a long time. The next week, I flew back to my hometown for the first time since the trial. The house looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier. Mom answered the door looking decades older, thin and gray and brittle. "So you've come to claim your prize," she said. "I've come to sign over the deed." She blinked, confused. "The house is yours," I said. "I don't want it. I never wanted it. I don't understand. Dad thought this was about money and revenge. It never was. It was about freedom." I handed her the legal documents I'd had prepared. The house was being transferred to her name, free and clear. "Why?" she asked. "Because holding on to anger is just another kind of prison. I've been free for 5 years now. I want to stay that way." She started crying then, deep sobs that seemed to come from years of built-up grief. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. We were wrong about everything." For a moment I almost hugged her, almost told her it was okay, almost slipped back into the old pattern of managing her emotions and fixing her problems. Instead I said, "I forgive you, but I can't have a relationship with you. Some damage can't be repaired, only acknowledged." I left the house keys on her kitchen counter and walked away. On the plane home to Denver, I thought about Dad's letter and his final attempt to guilt me into believing I'd destroyed the family. But I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd simply refused to enable it. The difference was everything. Camden met me at the airport with flowers and our 2-year-old daughter, Grace. She ran to me on toddler legs, shouting, "Mama," with pure joy. No conditions, no manipulation, no strings attached. Just love. As we drove home through the Colorado mountains, Grace babbling in her car seat about her day at daycare, I realized something important. I hadn't broken the cycle of dysfunction out of anger or revenge. I'd broken it out of love. Love for the children I hoped to have someday. Love for the life I wanted to build with Camden. Love for the person I could become. Once I stopped trying to earn approval from people who would never freely give it. My parents had confused control with love for so long they couldn't tell the difference anymore. But I could, and my daughter would grow up knowing the difference too. That night, as I tucked Grace into her crib, she reached up and patted my cheek with her tiny hand. "Love you, Mama," she said sleepily. "Love you too, baby," I whispered back. And I meant it without condition, without expectation, without strings, the way love is supposed to be.